Hi, it's Peter Chapman from SKUFood, and I want to welcome you to another one of our SKUFood Recipes for Success. Really appreciate you joining us today, and really looking forward to diving into an exciting topic for me. I think that there's a lot of change going on in our industry right now, and we have to deal with it, and we have to just figure out how to do business differently, and that's the new reality that we're facing. So I appreciate you taking the time, because I do know people are very busy as well, and we'll get right into the content, and I do want to ensure you that we'll be there to answer some questions at the end as well, and I'll be here as long as you have questions for me. So let's take a look and see what we're going to talk about today. And the first thing for me is just I want to talk about the importance of that face-to-face communication. And it's if I go back to my days at Loblaw, I was with Loblaw for 19 years, and about 8 of those years were on the merchandising side. And that face-to-face communication with suppliers is so important. I mean, I know we have other means of communication like email and texts and phone, but those face-to-face meetings are important. And in the environment that we're working in right now, where that's not going to be possible to go and have the meeting face-to-face in person, then we need to find new ways. And the virtual meeting or an online meeting is the best way to do that. And it's really a great tool when you can use it effectively. Another point that's a bit of a bonus, I guess, is that it can be less costly for you. For those who have to travel to meetings, it's you can do it right from your desk. And if you have an hour-long meeting, then you really only have to invest an hour. You don't have to wait, and you don't have to travel in traffic or fly or anything like that. So it can be less costly for you. And in my opinion, it actually is more effective sometimes. I find we get into meetings where we have conversations going on that may not be really on topic and that kind of thing. And right now, with online meetings, virtual meeting, video conference, whatever you want to call it, uh, there's more focus just on the topic and on the, I guess, the business side of it. And it doesn't mean you can't develop a relationship, but it's really more focused. Now, maybe that will evolve over time as we all get more and more used to the mediums. But right now, I would say it is probably more effective, focused conversation. And it's so important that we continue to find opportunities for that face to face. And as I said, when I was with Loblaw, it was so important to have those opportunities to talk to people and share and see what's going on. So we've got to dive into learning the technology and figuring it out. And one thing I just wanted to ask you just at the outset, so I kind of have a sense of who's on the line, is just if you could use the raised hand button at the bottom there. If you could just let me know how many of you have conducted a business meeting online. And I don't mean a FaceTime with family or Skype. I mean more an actual business meeting online. So if you could just let me know that, that just kind of helps me understand at what level we're at in terms of kind of level of usage and that kind of thing. So it's about half, probably about half of you have done it that way. So that's good. I appreciate that, just so I kind of have a sense of where we're at. So what I want to cover today is I want to talk about, in virtual meetings, what's the same. So what do you have to bring the same approach that you've always been bringing to your meetings with customers? And then I'm going to talk about what's different. And then we're going to wrap it up with 10 opportunities for you to sample your products virtually. And to me, that's one of the biggest challenges in this, is that you aren't there sitting across the desk from somebody. And for almost every product, I would say to you, it's the most important demo you do. So you really have to figure out how to do that sampling piece effectively. So we're going to talk about, I'm going to share 10 ideas that we've come up with to help you do that. And I think we got some good ones, actually. I'm looking forward to it. So, and I'm looking forward to your feedback on those 10 as well. So let's talk about what is the same. So the first thing that's the same is you've still got to do that same research into your customer. You've still got to, understand what are they focused on. These retailers, there's 3 of them on the screen there. They're all different. They have their own way of going to market. So you need to make sure that you understand that. And I would tell you that even the response to our recent challenges as a food industry, you see a different response from the different retailers, which again shows how they're different about going to market. So make sure you're taking the time to factor that into those presentations. Next thing is you need to research the store. And actually, that's a little tougher to do right now because they're asking you not to be in the stores, and rightfully so. I mean, we have to respect the safety of employees and staff, and they can't have people coming in and out of the stores who don't need to be there. But you do know the stores yourself. You know the merchandising, the fixtures. If you were selling into Calgary Co-op, which is the store on the left there, where they're more of a traditional merchandising style for produce, or if you're selling into a discounter on the right, then you would be bins and that kind of thing. So it's just, you need to make sure you understand who the audience, the store is that you're trying to put together a program or a new product or whatever your presentation is about. And the next thing that I really recommend you do is develop profiles of those category managers. These people they're all people, they're all different. And I can tell you from managing category managers that they're all different. They have different styles, different priorities. And even though, yes, they all work for, say, a Sobeys or a Metro or whoever your customer is, they're people. And you need to figure out what's important to them. And my suggestion to you is to have a file folder in your drawer, and then you can kind of keep tabs on, you know, things that happen, things that come up that you can say, oh, I got to make a note about that because this person wants it done this way and this person wants it done that way. So make sure you're developing those profiles of those category managers and factor that in, because whether you're having a meeting online or a meeting across a desk, they are different from one to another, and you have to allow for that. So another thing that's the same is you need to develop a strategy for your meetings, and it is like a chess game, this relationship between suppliers and retailers. So you do need to continue to think about that strategy, and your face-to-face meetings are an integral part of that strategy. So what are the things you want to accomplish in the meeting? How does it relate to the customer? What's in it for them? That kind of thing, and work that into your strategy. So think of it as a chess game. And I like the analogy with chess just because it's not just one move. You have to plan ahead, and trust me, I'm not a chess master or genius or anything like that. But I do know that you need to set things up and you need to plan 5-6 moves ahead. So that's the same kind of thing you need to bring to that approach with your customers. I still recommend, no different than if you're in person or you're in a virtual meeting, that you allow 5 minutes per page of your presentation. Because you see, the purpose of your presentation is to have a conversation. It's not just to read them a bunch of stuff. If it's just reading, you can email that to them. They can read it on their own time. You want to have a presentation that's engaging. You want to have a presentation that doesn't have a lot of words on the page. You might want to put some words on your own page to make sure you got great notes and cover important points, but just put the key points on the page and then have some conversation. You want it to be a two-way conversation. So allow 5 minutes. So if you have a 60-minute meeting with somebody, I recommend 12 pages. And that keeps it on time, because you can't go over in a virtual meeting any more than you can go over in an in-person meeting. So make sure you allow for that. I'm a big fan of an agenda with some solid sort of points that keep you focused on where you need to be. I like to start with an introduction, then move into that point of differentiation. So what's different about you or your products? Maybe not what's different about you, but what's different about your products or your business from the 10 people who are in their office the morning before. So what is that that's going to help your product sell and deliver sales and profit for them? And then we have to talk sales and we have to talk cost. That's just part of the negotiating. I like to switch the end of the meeting around to come back to credibility. So what part of your business is going to be credible? And if they're on a big push for service level, then what are you doing in your business that's going to deliver service level to them? And then plan that conclusion. And I'm always a big fan of planning the end of a meeting, because you don't want to get to the end and kind of go, well, I guess that's all we had to say today, because that's kind of awkward. You want to end it on a wow and make sure that both of you leave feeling like something's been accomplished. So have an agenda. You can customize it, but make sure that you're factoring that into your planning. And the last thing I would share with you is the pre-meeting strategy. So I'm a fan of having a checklist so that you kind of check off and reduce the stress, make sure that all the things are done that you need to do before a meeting. And then what I like to do is go to a store before a meeting. And you can still do this with a virtual meeting once some of the restrictions are maybe let up a little bit, and visiting stores is more acceptable. But you can walk the store, see what's going on, and just get your mind into the space of that particular customer. So if you have a meeting with a Metro store category manager, then I would go to a Metro store in advance if you can. Now, if you're having a virtual meeting and you're from the West Coast with a Metro category manager, obviously you're not going to get into one of their stores, but try to figure out how to get your head in the space of their stores, which is, to me, helps you be ready for the meeting. So those are some of the things that are the same that you need to think about for a virtual meeting or an in-person meeting. Now let's talk about the differences. And we're not going to get into virtual reality per se with your category managers. I think that technology is maybe a little bit off into the future a bit, but it's amazing some of the things that can be done now with video conferencing and virtual meetings. So there are some differences, and this is where it's key that you're aware of those differences and that you're really kind of planning for them into how you're going to conduct the meeting. So the first thing that's important is you have to think about the setup, and the setup is on your end, and it's very important that you have a setup that's conducive to a really good audio and a really good visual communication with them, because instead of going and sitting in a meeting room, now what is going to be just the focus is what's on their screen. And if you do that properly, it makes a big difference. And if I'm fully transparent with you, I can tell you that my first video interview was not a good one. I had a call one day from Global News, and they wanted to talk about some things going on in the food industry. And I get those calls from time to time to provide some input to them, to media. And it's great. I enjoy those opportunities. And they asked if we could do it on Skype. And my setup was terrible. And when I got home that night, and you're excited to kind of watch the clip and see, I was just like, oh, Peter, you didn't think through this properly. So I'm going to share some tips with you so that you can make sure that you have a great setup and you come across looking like a professional. Because that day on Global News, I didn't. So I had to go and learn, get some help, get some expertise, and now it's a different setup that I do. So let me just walk you through some of the basics. And virtual meetings, online meetings are like anything else. You can spend a whack of money, or you can find a less expensive, kind of more practical approach. And if you kind of think from left to right across the screen there, the first thing you do is you need to have some good lights. And obviously a bare light bulb is not a good light, but you need to have some good lighting so that there's lighting on your face so that they can see you and that they can read the expressions on your face through the meeting. Then the next thing that needs to be in line is the camera. So really the lights need to be behind the camera. That's very important. Then you have a camera. So if you have a relatively new laptop, probably within the last 2 or 3 years, the cameras are pretty good now in these laptops. So you don't need to have an external webcam. If your computer is older than that, or you're working from a desktop, then you need to have an external webcam, which are not expensive, and usually they just plug into your USB. So it's not that difficult. Then you need to have yourself. So we have lights on you, then we have the camera, then we have yourself, and then behind you is also very important. And what the words on my screen should be: lights, camera, you, no action, because the background is important. You can't have a busy background. You can't have people going by and that kind of thing. It needs to be kind of calming or just very benign almost. Now I use the green screen, which we're going to talk about in a couple of minutes, but that's a different setup, which you may or may not want to invest in. But it's the best thing is a clear, sort of calm, quiet background. I put the brick wall there, but it can be just a plain colored wall if you want. But what you don't want is a busy bookshelf with about 40 things, because what happens is you lose the attention of the people that you're trying to talk to, because they're looking and saying, what's that book that he's or she's reading? Or what's that thing over there? Is that pictures of their family? Or, oh, I think I know that person. So you want to keep the focus on the meeting. So a very simple setup for an effective virtual meeting is a good source of lighting, and it doesn't need to be an expensive photography lighting. It can be, it helps, but you need lighting, then you need a camera, then you need yourself, and then you need that background behind that that's not going to be distracting to them. You need a really good internet connection, and that's something that we're also used to working on Wi-Fi now, which is so convenient, and we can just move around and go wherever we want. But I would recommend, if you are going to be doing a lot of online meetings, that you just get a hardwired connection into your internet connection, so that you can plug your computer in when you're doing those virtual meetings. Because it's what you don't want to have happen is to have a bad connection, and the person on the other end is like trying to listen and they can't hear you. And we've all been on those calls where it's distracting. And so if at all possible, you want to get yourself a cable and kind of go old school, I guess, on that one. And this is something I learned is you really need to think about the camera angle. And if you look at how this person here, I mean, this is one of those classic sort of up the nose shots. As soon as that guy puts his head back a little bit, we're going to get a view that we really don't want to get. So you really need to think about keeping the camera at eye level. And if you're using the camera on your laptop, then just make sure your laptop is raised up a little bit. And if I'm transparent here, I put mine on a stack of books because I don't have a fancy stand. I just put it up on a stack of books and make sure that I get the camera to eye level, so that you're not getting that awkward kind of view of the person. And it also can kind of come across as though the person's looking down on you. And that's not a good look either. And if you think about it, being in a meeting with somebody face to face, you look at them in the face. So just position your camera so that it's right at eye level. Audio is important too. You need to have a background that's quiet. No, if you're in an office, it can't always be perfectly quiet, and that's fine. But one thing I would recommend if you're going to be doing these meetings is you can get a headset. And again, they're not that expensive. They plug in, and it eliminates the background noise for you, and usually will give a better microphone into the computer so that you pick up the audio properly. And again, all these kind of things are meant to avoid the distraction, because what you want to do is keep the focus of yourself and the people on the other end into the call. So make sure that you check out those things about the camera and the audio. Now the green screen. So the green screen is kind of a cool thing, and I didn't have that option at first, and some of the applications that you can buy do have that built in. Some of them don't. You can look at different options. But the green screen is kind of neat, and then it does remove clutter in the background. And the option that I use, which is, I did some research, and what I found to be the best way was, what I actually did was installed a roller blind in my office, and I got some green material from the fabric store and applied it to the roller blind. So the roller blind goes up and down, and when I pull it down, the green screen is there. And when I use Zoom, which is the application that I use, the image is right there behind me for the people watching. And I can change it very easily. It's very simple to change that. So it's kind of a neat option, and it removes sort of the choice about clutter. And for me in my office, actually the whiteboard is behind the green screen, which I wouldn't want my whiteboard in the background of all my video conference things, because sometimes I'd have to erase it because of work I'm doing or that kind of thing. And it's not the best background anyway, because it's kind of white and shiny. So the green screen is easy, and you can even get some that attach to your chair now. So there's different options, and it's really not difficult to get it set up. And if you're having a video conference call with Whole Foods, then you could put a picture of a Whole Foods store in the background like I have today. So you can do different things with it. Now, I just want to touch on the applications. There's all kinds of different applications out there, and I'm not here to tell you one over another. I did some investigating when I decided to invest in one. I use Zoom. I find it works well for my needs. I really like some of the features of it, and Zoom for meetings with I think, anywhere, I know you can get about 20 people on the screen, but usually in a meeting between a customer and a retailer, we would only have maybe 2 or 4 people. And you can see everybody on the screen. You can have a good conversation. You can do some of the options like sharing your screen, which we're going to talk about in a minute. And I find for a business application that Zoom works well. Now, like I say, there are many others out there, and I would encourage you to just investigate them. And like anything else, like I said at the beginning, you can spend a lot of money, or you can go for a less expensive option. But it's really just a matter of doing some research and finding the right application. But you do want one that people on the other end have an easy time using. It's important that when you send a link, and one of the reasons that I selected Zoom was that as long as somebody downloads the application, which they only need to do once, then anytime they get a link for a Zoom meeting, they just have to click on the link and they're right into the meeting. So it's pretty simple on the other end. So do your homework and find the right one. Lots of them out there to choose from. Now, sharing your screen. Now, this is a really important part of these virtual meetings with category managers, because the days of being able to sort of point out something or use your pen to show something, that's not going to happen when you're virtual meeting. So you need to think of your slides. If you're building them in PowerPoint, some people use Keynote on the Mac, but most people use PowerPoint. Think about your PowerPoint slides that someone's going to have to interpret that when you're not right there. Your face is there, like I'm using screen sharing right now in Zoom, so you can see me talking and you see the PowerPoint slide that I've got on the screen. So you just need to be able to think through, okay, how will I talk to that slide? How will I get the point across? And sometimes it could be, if you're showing a chart and saying, here's our year-to-date sales, the next slide in your presentation might be, okay, here's where we forecast the following year, that kind of thing. So that you're intuitively taking them through the presentation, which you might not have had to do if you were sitting across the desk, because you could just reach over and say, here's where we were and here's where we're going to go. Now, a lot of the retailers recently, even before we got into the challenges of travel, we're recommending that you send an email copy ahead of time and don't bring paper. So that change has already started to happen. So I just encourage you to think through your slides and really try to think, all right, someone's going to look at this on a screen. And it also means now they're not going to be taking notes on the PowerPoint that you might have printed for them last year. So how do you want them to, what are the takeaways that you want them to have from a particular slide? And I would recommend less busy. So try to keep it clean and just be able to walk them through and be able to focus on those key points that you want to get across with them. So we're going to talk about the sampling piece now. And this was something that when I made a commitment and said I'm going to do a session on virtual meetings, this was one of the challenges I think that we face in this arena. So I wanted to provide some solutions for you. And I tell you that your role as a supplier in the industry is to bring solutions to the retailers. Well, my role at SKUFood is to bring solutions to the SKUFood community. So for those of you who are part of it, I appreciate you being there. And for members, then we have some extra things on the membership side. So let's talk about sampling. And I think that you can bring a piece of cheese. That's certainly one way to do a sampling, and or you can choose to make it an experience. And again, if I go back to my days at Loblaw, when I had vendors coming in to see me or going to see them, I can tell you that the sampling experiences that I was a part of, if it was an experience, I remembered it. If it was somebody showing me how to use the product and how the product tastes its best, I had a much better understanding of what consumers were going to be looking for when they came in the store. So yes, there were lots of people who just come in and give me a piece of cheese. They definitely did. But what I'm telling you is that I remember the ones who made it into an experience. So here's my 10 opportunities for you to do sampling in virtual meetings. So the first one is you can just send it to them. And I think that's kind of akin to sampling. You can put it in a box and you can courier it or whatever it is, mail it or whatever. There's a lot of risks with this strategy, though. For one thing, did the box get delivered to them? And there's nothing worse than saying to someone, did you get the package? And they're like, no, the courier didn't show up today. And then, that's a key part of your meeting is the sample, and they don't even have it there for them. So I think, it's an option, but I'd recommend the other 9 other than just sending it to them. So the second option we have for you is, what about looking to, say, an inner city youth group and going to them and saying, we want you to come and sample our products to our customer. And for those of you who are familiar, there's stories, in retail where some of the retailers have worked with inner city youth to develop a product and put it in their stores and make it a component of their program. So you can make a donation to the group, and then you can help them understand, how do you sample the product? And they show up at the customer's office that day, and they go in and do the sampling. And I think that's an innovative way to bring your product to the market. That's one option for you. Another option, which I think would be a great experience for these people, is to use business students. So these are people, maybe you can find somebody in a 3rd, 4th year business program in the city where your customer resides, and you work with them ahead of time and say, okay, how are we going to sample the product? This is what I need you to do. You show up on this day at this time, and when you tell your customer that this is how you're going to do it. And that's the same with any of these. You have to set this up ahead. It's a little bit more work on that side, but I think it could be very effective to say that we've partnered with the University of whatever business program, and we're giving some students an opportunity for a real life experience with a category manager from Loblaw or whatever the company is. So I think it's a great chance to do something differently. Another option for you is that you could hire an outside demo company. So this is a company who does events in different markets, and they would do in-store sampling. You see different things they've done. There's pictures of Costco and different stores there. So you could hire them to go in and do a demo of your product at the appropriate time. So if you're having the meeting with the category manager and they go into the office, and at 3:15 or whatever the time is, then they would go in and do that demo sampling. So they're experienced at it. They know how to do product sampling. So they could do that for you in the office. Another option, which I think is pretty neat, is think about hiring a local chef. And especially in this day and age with how the restaurant industry has been decimated, I'm sure there's people who would look for some opportunities. And I think they might even be able to bring a lot of creativity and some excitement to your sampling. So if you hired a chef from a local restaurant to go in and do something with your product, and again, you have to work with them ahead of time to make sure that the sampling reflects how you want it. I mean, we can't get too creative here, but I think they could do something different for you and make it interesting for the category manager. And you talk about an experience of having a chef come in to sample the product. Another option for you is that you take more of a meal kit kind of approach. So I'm sure that everybody now has been experienced with a meal kit. So you develop that kind of a program for your own product. So you develop a little bit of a recipe book with maybe 5 easy steps, and this is what the category manager needs to do. And this is one of the ones when I was putting together the list where you have to know your category manager. And remember when I told you at the beginning that you have to have that profile and you need to know what they're interested and not interested. Well, if you have one who's talking about cooking all the time and they made this or they did that, then a meal kit might be a great option for them to try your product in a recipe or how it's really done. So you could prepare that ahead of time and send it to them, and they know the meeting's coming up, and it's an interactive way for them to participate with your product. So our 7th option is to find a complementary item and find a complementary product where their salespeople are in the city where the retailer's office is. So if you look at this picture of a burger, there's about 7 different items there between the bun and the bacon and the cheese and the meat and the vegetables, and you can find people that could be a partner. So if you're doing one item, if you're the bacon and you want to find somebody who does, say, beef or pork or vegetable protein, you find a partner and they go in and do the sampling for you, and they get to have a little bit of time and say, oh, it's a great opportunity. You can see the taste of the bacon, but also here you get to try our protein. So find some complementary vendors and do some collaboration with them to do some sampling in the category manager's office for you. Another option is a culinary school. I think that there's some fantastic culinary schools across Canada where you could partner with them and develop a means for them to go and their students who are on their way to becoming chefs. And what a great experience for a student chef to get exposure to that side of the food industry. And I think a lot of times my experience working with people in culinary schools, they sort of think of the food industry as being restaurants, and that's obviously an important part of the food industry, but it's not the only part. So what a great chance for them to see a different side of the industry and go in and sample some of your products to a real category manager and give them that experience. And another one, number 9, that I have is celebrity sampling. And the reason, for those of you who are old enough to remember hockey in the 70s, I grew up in Montreal, and Guy Lafleur would have been a hero during my time growing up there. And at my time with Loblaw, he actually came into our office one day to sample. He had developed, I'm not sure he developed it, but a sports energy drink called Flower Power was developed, and Guy Lafleur was obviously the spokesperson for Flower Power. And so I always remember him coming into the office one day, and it was a big deal, I'll tell you, because it was like, wow, Guy Lafleur is going to be in our office. And for those of us who were Montreal Canadiens fans, it was a big event. For those who were Toronto Maple Leafs fans, maybe not. But you could find a celebrity, and celebrities don't have to be multi-million-dollar celebrities. You could find radio personalities. You can find different celebrities within a market who could come in and do something with your product and be there at the appropriate time to sample your product. So that's another option for sampling when you're not there. And the last one that I have for you is really something that's being used with a lot of brands, which is a brand ambassador program. And this is where you find those people in the market who are passionate about your products. And we know that clothing companies have used this strategy a number of times, like Lululemon is one who really had a lot of brand ambassadors to help get their brand established in the market. And these are people who really love the product, who have a vested interest. They purchase the product for their family, and they can speak passionately about it because they really like it. And for me, that's a very powerful message to send into a retailer, is to say that, we're going to have so-and-so who's our brand ambassador. They buy the product for their family. They can talk about the product, and they're knowledgeable about it, but they're not also a salesperson. So I think that's another great option to do some sampling for you. So those are our 10 ideas for virtual sampling. And I'm just going to recap them just for a moment, because I did go through them quickly. And in this sort of format, you do have to keep the pace going, because it's important to keep people engaged. So the first thing is you can just send the product to them. That's one option in a box. You can do a donation, do some kind of an outreach program, perhaps with a community youth group, where they go in and do the sampling for you. You can find some business students or university students who are in the market where your customer is, and make it a project for them to be a part of that. You could use a demo company who are established and understand how to sample products. You can use a local chef, so you can get creative and try to bring some flair to it, and that's probably the make an experience part of it. You can develop that meal kit option, where you give them the step-by-step approach as to what to do with your products. Now, again, that only works with certain category managers, because not all of them are going to do that for you. You can partner with a complementary product. So you find somebody who has the ability to go in and do the sampling in that marketplace and talk about both products. You could find students from a culinary school who have some great skills and make it, again, part of their curriculum and allow them to see a different side of the food industry. You can go to my celebrity sampling option, which would probably cost you some money, but depending on the level of celebrity that you want to engage. But it's another way to create something memorable. And when you look at those category manager profiles, if you had somebody who was really interested in a certain thing and you found a celebrity that was a good match for that, I mean, that can be a wow, and that's a memorable thing, and maybe more memorable than one of us going in and sampling the product. And my last suggestion is to find those brand ambassadors out there in the market who really have a vested interest in your product, that really like it and can talk passionately and knowledgeably about it, and go in and share that with your customers. So there's 10 options for you to do sampling in that virtual environment. So I hope that you can put some of those to good use within your business, and take advantage of being, or use the new technology. And I think that it's just, we have to keep changing, and we have to keep adapting, and trying to find new ways to do business. And we can't say that this isn't possible anymore, or that kind of thing. I think we have to adapt and keep looking for opportunities in this new reality that we're working within. So I hope you've got some great stuff out of all those different things. And one thing I wanted to do today was just end on a good note. And I think lately we've had a lot of confusing news and tough things to follow, but and we've seen some great things that the retailers have been working on with staff and trying to be part of the solution. But I did want to pass along some things that producers and processors are doing. We've seen a lot of companies, I just put Ironworks here on the screen, but there are a lot of companies across Canada that are beverage alcohol businesses that are switching production over to hand sanitizers so that people can take advantage of those products and try to reduce the spread. So that's one thing. Some of the big businesses are really coming to the table. Maple Leaf Foods announced that they were donating, I believe it was $4.5 million across some different initiatives that they were doing. JD Irving, another processor, that they're doing $1 million to food banks in New Brunswick to try and alleviate some of the stress that they're under. But it doesn't always have to be millions of dollars either. And I found this one on that's on the screen, where one of the employees at the Coca-Cola plant in Moncton, New Brunswick, went in on the weekend and just painted rainbows all over their office and put some positive messages, because we're all working in a difficult environment, and those people going to work in food production and processing are challenged to go to work as well. And I think there's been more focus on retail, and understandably, because it's more the face, but employees in food production and processing are having to go to work and do their job the best that they can. And so when we see positive things, I just thought it was a great opportunity to share some of that. So if you have great stories about what's going on in your business, I'd love to hear about them, because I'd love to share those. I think that we have to face a different business environment, but we also need to share some good things going on. And I'm sure there's lots of good initiatives going on in your business as well. And I see we've got a couple of questions, and we will get to those right away. And I just want to cover one more thing, is just to invite you that next week we're going to do another recipe for success. I'm trying to find quick ways to give people some content to help their food business in this new environment. And so we actually have a guest next week, and it's my sister-in-law, Tanya Chapman. And Tanya's going to help you with planning and managing work in uncertain times. And Tanya has her own HR consulting business, and she's got some great experience, and she's going to share some really practical things that you can try to do with your team and help to work through in these uncertain times, and how you can help your employees and make them feel engaged, and try to do some of the things that, because it's so important to keep your workforce and be able to continue producing. So I look forward to that next week. We'll send you a link so that you can register, but it would be great if we had you there and share some more insights with you. So let me just get to the questions now. I see there's a few here, so I'm going to just take a look. Let's see what we've got here. Good options, but with COVID-19, this will be a challenge to do any of the people demos. What would be the best right now in our current situation? So I agree. I think that we are in I'll say a period of time where it's even more challenging. I would say that you can do the option where you send the product to them. Either my first option, which I said is not my favorite, but if it's in the situation we're in right now, that is an option that can work. You could do the meal kit option right now, where you prepare something up and give them a step-by-step approach as to how to use it. Those are probably the two out of the things that I suggested that would work within the window we're at right now. And to be honest, I'm not sure there's a lot of new products that are being reviewed right now. What I would tell you is if the retailers are challenged for supply in a category, for example, if their product comes from a part of the world that's more challenged than Canada and supply is going to be interrupted, then the retailers are looking for solutions, and then you may have to send a sample in. But right now in the current situation, probably sending it to them is the best that you can do. And hopefully, once we find some solutions to all these challenges that we're facing, then we can get into some of those other options. But I agree that we can't send people into those offices right now. The second question, looking at options like brand ambassadors and hiring chefs, other people to do demos of your product, why not just go do it yourself? Well, I think that we're going to see more and more where category managers are going to just say, we're going to do the meeting on video conference. And yes, there is a cost to do that, but I would say that the cost if you're flying from one part of the country to another, then there's a bigger cost than just hiring somebody to go in. And I believe there's also some side benefits or extra benefits to partnering with some of those people, whether it's the student side of it or the chef side of it, where you bring some flair. And so yes, there's a cost, but I do believe that you'll be able to be more effective as well, because these meetings are, as we communicate right now, we're I'll say forced to communicate without being in person. I think it's going to become more the norm of how we communicate with our customers. So that's why I'm trying to look at some of those options. And there's another question about run into security issues with online platforms, for sure. And yes, I've heard this term as well, Zoom bombs, which have been in the news of late. And so it's very important that you learn how to use the applications properly. And there are a lot of settings, like so many of these other applications that we have. There are different things sort of behind the scenes. So when you're doing a virtual meeting with somebody, one of the settings which you have to make sure that you've engaged, I guess is the word, is that only your screen can be shared with all of the people who are on the call. And if you leave it open, then the people who have sort of that knowledge, I guess, or the ability to be a pain, can figure out how to get in there and put things on your screen that you don't want to be on the screen. So, and that's that sort of term Zoom bombing, where people come in and take over the meeting and that kind of thing. So you do have to definitely do your homework on how to use the application. And there are a lot of different things out there today to help with some of that. But I would tell you, I've certainly had to learn some of those things myself, not because it was Zoom bombed, but to be proactive and avoid that happening. So, but great question. So just here for another minute, if anybody has any more questions, certainly I'm happy to answer them. And it doesn't just have to be about virtual meetings. If you have another burning question right now, given the environment that we're operating in, I'm happy to answer those. I think that the more that we can do within the community is to be collaborative and find solutions, then I think it's great, because we're all working in a different environment than we were 2 or 3 weeks ago and trying to find solutions. So so I'm happy to answer those questions, or if you don't have it here, you can always give me a call at 902-489-2900. And you can send me an email, peter@skufood.com, and I'll be happy to get back to you. So we will send a recording of today's session out, and then after that, we'll put it in the archives for our SKUFood members, where they can access it and review it if they want on their own time. And it'd be great to have you with us next week, next Wednesday, same time. Really look forward to talking about your employees, your teams, and also doing a webinar tomorrow with Perennia on sustainability in the food industry. So if that's of interest, if you go to the Perennia website, you can find that webinar, or just Google sustainability webinar, Perennia. I'm sure you'll find the registration information. So really looking forward to that conversation as well, and appreciate you being here today with us, and was really appreciate the opportunity to share some of the insights for you into how to have great virtual meetings with your category managers.